Every comedian starting out walks into an audition with high hopes, a racing pulse, and a piece of material.
Imagine reaching 86 years old, after a lifetime of success, and realizing something important was missing all along. Not fame, not money, something much quieter, but far more meaningful. It's a strange thought, but it's one that makes you stop for a moment. Because most people spend their entire lives chasing things they believe will bring them happiness, only to realize later that the real value was hidden somewhere else the whole time. For over 5 decades, Lily Tomlin built a career that most people can only dream of. She made millions laugh, appeared in countless films and shows, and became a respected name in entertainment. From the outside, her life looks complete, almost perfect. Success, recognition, influence, it's all there. But when you look deeper, you begin to understand that even a life filled with achievement can still leave room for reflection. As time passes, people naturally begin to think differently. What once felt important slowly changes. The rush of building a career, the excitement of opportunities, the constant movement, it all starts to slow down. And in that quiet space, something else becomes clearer. It's not always about what you gained. Sometimes it's about what you miss along the way. In many reflections over the years, the focus isn't on one dramatic regret. It's something more subtle than that. It's about time, how quickly it moves, and how easily it slips away without being noticed. One day you are busy, focused, always planning the next step. And before you realize it, years have passed. Moments that once felt small suddenly feel important. But by then, they are already behind you. Think about it. How many times do people say, "I'll do it later"? Later to spend time with someone. Later to rest. Later to enjoy the moment. But later is not always guaranteed. That is where the real meaning starts to appear. It's not about a single mistake, but about a pattern of small delays, small choices, and small moments that slowly build into something bigger. What makes this realization powerful is not who it comes from, but what it represents. When someone who has already achieved so much looks back and reflects, it forces you to question your own path. If success alone was enough, there would be nothing left to think about. But clearly, there is something more. It's easy to believe that once you reach a certain level in life, everything will feel complete. That once you have enough money, enough recognition, or enough success, you will finally feel satisfied. But real life does not always work that way. Sometimes, the things that matter most are not the ones you spend the most time chasing. There are moments in life that seem ordinary when they happen. Sitting with family, talking to a friend, enjoying a quiet day without stress. At the time, they don't feel important. But later, those are often the moments people wish they had more of. Not the big achievements, but the simple experiences that made life feel real. As the years pass, perspective changes. The focus shifts from building something to understanding what was built. And in that understanding, there's often a mix of appreciation and reflection. Not necessarily regret in a dramatic way, but a quiet awareness that things could have been different. This is where the message becomes meaningful. It's not about looking back with sadness. It's about recognizing what truly matters while there's still time to appreciate it. Because the biggest mistake is not failing. It's not even choosing the wrong path. The biggest mistake is not noticing the important things while they are still happening. Time does not stop. It does not slow down when you are busy. It keeps moving, whether you pay attention to it or not. And one day, everyone reaches a point where they look back. The question is not whether that moment will come. The question is what you will feel when it does. Will you feel satisfied with how you spent your time? Or will you wish you had paid more attention to the small moments that quietly pass by? That is what makes this reflection so powerful. It is not about one person's story. It is about something everyone can understand. Because no matter who you are, where you come from, or what you achieve, time is the one thing you can never get back. And maybe that is the real lesson here. Not something dramatic or shocking, but something simple and real. Pay attention to what matters while you still can. Because one day, those small moments will become the ones you think about the most. And by then, you won't be able to go back and relive them. And that's the part most people don't realize until much later. Life doesn't suddenly slow down and give you a warning. There's no moment where everything pauses and tells you, this is important, pay attention. Instead, it moves quietly, almost unnoticed, while you stay focused on what feels urgent in the moment. Work, goals, responsibilities, plans for the future, they all take priority. And without realizing it, the present starts to slip away. What makes this even more powerful is how normal it feels while it's happening. No one thinks they are missing out in real time. It feels like progress. It feels like building something meaningful. And in many ways, it is. But at the same time, something else is being left behind. Conversations that could have lasted longer. Time that could have been spent differently. Moments that didn't seem important then, but would mean everything now. This is not about blaming the past. It's about understanding it. Because once you see it clearly, it changes how you look at the present. You begin to notice things you didn't notice before. The way time moves during a normal day. The way people come and go in your life. The way certain opportunities don't stay forever, even if it feels like they will. And suddenly, the idea of later starts to feel uncertain. Not in a negative way, but in a real way. You begin to understand that later is not something you can always depend on. It's something you hope for, but not something you control. That shift in thinking is where everything changes. Because once you become aware of it, your priorities start to adjust. Things that once felt urgent don't feel as important anymore. And things that once felt small begin to stand out. A simple conversation, a quiet moment, a chance to be present without distraction. That's a lesson hidden inside all of this. Not something loud or dramatic, but something quiet and real. Pay attention. Slow down when you can. Notice the people around you. Value the moments that don't seem important right now, because one day they might be the ones you remember the most. Because eventually, everyone reaches a point where they look back. And when that moment comes, what matters most is not how busy you were or how much you achieved, but whether you were truly present for the life you were living. So maybe the real question isn't about regret at all. Maybe it's about awareness, about choosing to see what matters before it becomes a memory. Because once time passes, it doesn't come back. And the moments you're living right now are the ones you'll carry with you forever. And when you really sit with this idea for a moment, it starts to feel less like a story about one person and more like a reflection of life in general. The thoughts Lily Tomlin has shared at this stage of her life are not unusual in the sense that they only belong to celebrities or people with fame. They are actually very human thoughts. They come from experience, from time, and from the quiet moments when life slows down enough for you to think clearly. Because the truth is, everyone reaches a point where they begin to look back. It doesn't matter what job you had, how successful you became, or how different your life looked from others. Time has a way of creating the same reflection in almost everyone. You start asking questions you didn't think about before. Did I spend my time well? Did I focus on the right things? Did I appreciate the moments while they were happening? And often, the answers are not simple. Life is not a straight line of success or failure. It's a mix of experiences, choices, missed chances, and unexpected moments. Some decisions turn out well, others don't, but most of life happens in between those extremes. In the everyday flow of time, where things feel normal, and you don't realize how quickly everything is moving. That is why reflections like this feel so powerful. They slow you down mentally, even if only for a few minutes. They make you think about your own path without pressure or judgment, not to create fear, but to create awareness. Awareness that time is always moving, even when life feels stable. There is something very human about realizing that the most valuable things in life are often not the biggest ones. It's not always the achievements or the milestones that stay in your memory. It's the quiet conversations, the ordinary days, the small moments that didn't feel important at the time, but somehow stayed with you. And when people look back, they don't usually wish they worked more or stayed busier. They often wish they were more present, more aware, more connected to the moments that were already there in front of them. That realization doesn't come as a shock. It comes slowly, over time, as perspective changes. But the important part of this reflection is not regret. It's understanding. Because understanding gives you a chance to see life differently while you are still living it. It allows you to notice things earlier, to appreciate things more, and to let go of the idea that everything meaningful is always somewhere in the future. The present moment becomes more valuable when you see it as something that will never come back in exactly the same way again. Every conversation, every day, every small experience is part of a timeline that keeps moving forward. And once it passes, it becomes memory not reality. So the real message in all of this is not about fear or regret. It's about attention. Paying attention to your life while you are inside it. Not waiting for a perfect version of it to arrive later. Because later always becomes earlier at some point. And when you finally understand that, something shifts. You don't stop planning for the future, but you stop ignoring the present. You don't stop growing, but you start noticing more. You don't stop chasing goals, but you also start valuing the life happening alongside those goals. Because in the end, life is not just something you complete. It is something you experience. And the quality of that experience is shaped by how present you are while it is happening. And maybe that is a quiet lesson hidden in all of this. Not something dramatic, not something complicated. Just a simple reminder that the life you are living right now is the only version of it you will ever get in this exact moment. So don't just move through it. Notice it, live it, and let it matter while it is still yours. These are the things that often get overlooked. Not because they don't matter, but because they don't demand attention. They don't compete with deadlines or goals. They exist quietly in the background, waiting for you to notice them. And most of the time, people don't until they are already gone. What makes reflections like this so powerful is that they don't come from failure. They come from experience. From a long life of seeing what truly lasts and what fades away. And when someone reaches that point, their perspective becomes different from everything that came before. It's no longer about chasing the next achievement. It's about understanding the value of what has already happened. It's about recognizing that life is not just made up of big milestones, but also of countless small moments that shape how you feel in the end. And maybe that is the most important part of all. Because while you can't go back and change the past, you can change how you move forward. You can choose to notice things sooner. You can choose to slow down, even just a little. You can choose to be more present in moments that might otherwise pass by unnoticed. The truth is, no one escapes time. Everyone reaches a point where they look back and reflect. But not everyone takes that reflection and uses it to see things differently while they still can. So the real question is not about regret. It's about awareness. It's about asking yourself, right now, what actually matters to you? Not what feels urgent, not what society tells you to chase, but what genuinely adds meaning to your life. Because one day, the rush will slow down, the noise will fade, and what will remain are the moments you lived, the people you connected with, and the experiences that made everything feel real. And if you can understand that now, even just a little, then maybe you won't have to look back and wonder what you missed. Maybe instead, you'll look back and know you were there for it. And when you reach that point, something interesting happens. You stop measuring life only by what you achieved, and you start measuring it by what you experienced. The pressure to constantly move forward begins to fade, and in its place comes a quieter kind of understanding. You begin to see that life was never just about reaching a destination. It was about everything that happened along the way. The small details start to matter more. The tone of someone's voice. The feeling of a calm moment without stress. The way time seems to slow down when you are fully present. These are things that are easy to overlook when life feels busy, but they are often the things people remember the most later on. Not the big wins, not the public recognition, but the simple, real moments that felt genuine. There is also a shift in how you see people. Relationships that once felt like they would always be there begin to feel more valuable. You realize that time with others is limited, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. And that awareness changes how you interact. You listen more. You appreciate more. You become more present. Not because you have to, but because you understand what it means to lose those moments. At the same time, you start to let go of things that once felt important. The need to prove something. The pressure to keep up with others. The constant comparison that quietly follows people through life. These things begin to feel less meaningful when you step back and look at the bigger picture. Because in the end, they don't hold the same value as real experiences and real connections. This doesn't mean you stop working toward your goals. It means you approach them differently. You begin to balance ambition with awareness. You still move forward, but you don't forget to look around while you do. You don't let the present disappear completely while you focus on the future. And that balance is where real fulfillment begins to grow. Not in extremes, but in understanding. Understanding that life is not just about what you build, but also about what you live. Not just about reaching the next step, but about appreciating the step you are currently on. When you hear reflections from someone who has lived through decades of experience, it's not just advice. It's a reminder that time moves in one direction, and once it passes, it becomes memory. You can't go back and relive it, but you can choose how you experience the moments that are still in front of you. So instead of waiting for a moment in the future to feel complete, you start to see value in the present. Instead of thinking one day, you start thinking right now. Because right now is the only time you truly have control over. And maybe that is the quiet truth behind everything. Not something dramatic or shocking, but something simple and real. Life doesn't need to be perfect to be meaningful. It just needs to be noticed. Because in the end, it's not the years that define your life. It's what you did with the time inside those years. And in the end, everything comes down to something very simple, yet very easy to overlook. Life is not just about how far you go or how much you achieve. It's about how much of it you actually live while it's happening. Because time doesn't wait for the perfect moment, and it doesn't give second chances to moments that pass unnoticed. When you step back and really think about it, the biggest loss is not failure. It's not taking risks. It's not even making mistakes. The biggest loss is letting time move forward without truly experiencing it. Missing the small things that quietly shape your life while you are focused on something else. And when that understanding settles in, life starts to feel a little different. Not in a sudden or dramatic way, but in small, quiet shifts. You begin to slow down in moments you would have rushed through before. You start listening a little more carefully when someone speaks. You notice details you used to ignore. It doesn't feel like a big change from the outside, but inside, something becomes more grounded. What makes reflections like this powerful is that they don't ask you to change your entire life overnight. They simply ask you to notice it, to be aware that every day you are living is part of something you will one day look back on, and that awareness alone is enough to change how you experience the present moment. Even the ordinary parts of life begin to feel different. A simple walk, a quiet evening, a short conversation, or even a moment of rest starts to carry more meaning. Not because life has changed, but because your attention to it has changed. And attention is what gives meaning to experience. People often think meaning comes from big achievements or major events. But when you look closely at real memories, the ones that stay with you are often much simpler. They are the moments where you felt present without distraction, where nothing extraordinary was happening, but everything felt real. And that is where the deeper lesson quietly sits. Not in chasing more, but in noticing more. Not in waiting for a perfect life, but in recognizing the value of the life already happening. Because the truth is, there is no separate moment where life becomes important. It is always important. It just doesn't always feel that way while you are in it. That is why reflections like this stay with people. They don't give instructions. They give perspective. And perspective is what slowly reshapes how you move through time. It helps you understand that what feels small today may become meaningful tomorrow. And what feels routine now may become something you wish you had paid more attention to later. So as this thought comes full circle, it brings you back to the present, back to the life that is unfolding right now, in real time, without waiting. There is no need to overthink it or pressure yourself with regret. The point is simply to see it clearly. Because one day, this moment too will become a memory. And when that happens, the only thing that will matter is how fully you were there for it. So maybe the real ending is not about looking back at life. It's about finally realizing that life is happening right now.